Coming to you from deep inside the bowels of a great big empty. Get ready for another episode of The Home Defense Show with Skip Coryell.
Hello, American families. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Home Defense Show. I'm your host, Skip Coryell. And if you love your family, care about them deeply, and want to learn how to protect them in every facet of your life, then you've come to the right place. We got a great show for you today, and I know that you're going to love it. If I sound a little upbeat this week, it's because I am upbeat. For the past, 6 days, I have been deer hunting. Every day, morning and night, I've been going out there hunting my butt off. And I have not seen a single deer. That is, until a couple of hours ago. I was out there on the edge of the cornfield there. The corn was up until last night, and I think those deer, they were living in the corn. And I just wasn't seeing them because they didn't have to come out. And it was so hot, they weren't moving during the daytime at all. But I went out there tonight. And about 6:15, I had a deer, actually two deer, come out of the swamp and walk down the corn. And they were out in that corn, on the edge of the corn for about, 10 minutes. And I managed to grunt the bigger doe down to where I was at. And, I always tell myself, don't get excited now. Just relax, lower your heart rate. Think about where you're going to put the shot. Okay, what's the distance? You have to know the right distance. You can't make the shot. And I tell you, folks, I always get rattled. I hope I don't do this. If I ever have to get in a gunfight, I hope I'm not like this. I'd like to stay a little calm so I don't die. It's just a deer, right? I mean, it's a vegetarian, and I'm 16, 17 feet up in a tree. But I just get this adrenaline surge, and my upper body just goes weak. And it's really stupid. But, man, it's fun. And this deer come in, and I did not want to make a good shot. I don't like wounding deer. I don't like missing deer. And so I go ahead and I said, okay, now pick a spot. Watch the angle. And this deer was quartered slightly towards me. So I thought, all right, I got to hit it forward in the upper right shoulder. I'm shooting a crossbow, 330 feet per second. It'll zip right through that shoulder, no problem. And so the moment of truth comes, and I take aim, I put that crosshair exactly where I want it to go, and I shoot, and I hear it hit the deer, and the deer turned and walked a few steps. And I thought, I just heard that arrow hit that deer. The deer is supposed to be on its death run. When you hit them really good, they take off running for, 50, 100 yards, and then they drop over dead. This deer wasn't running. In fact, she waited, 30 seconds or so, and then just started to walk out into the cornfield. And she's even eating corn, looking for corn on the ground. And I'm thinking, how did I miss that deer? How in the world did I miss that deer? She was out in that cornfield for, about 7 minutes. Just, walking around. And by now she's about 100 yards away from me. And then she just turned rather abruptly and started walking back into the swamp. And I thought, well, that's odd. Why would she go back into the swamp? And I'm watching her with the binoculars, and I see when she turned, I can see on her left side there's an exit wound. Wow, that's blood. And that's exactly where it should be if I'm going to kill this deer. But why is the deer still walking? And then all of a sudden she stumbled a little bit. And deer don't stumble without a reason. And so she went into the tall grass and into the swamp. And so I waited about 5 minutes, because I have never been good at waiting. I'll shoot a deer, and then I'll look at my watch and say, Okay, I spent 2 minutes. That's long enough. You're supposed to wait like half hour, 45 minutes, depending on how you hit them. But I couldn't wait. So I get down on my tree stand and I was quiet and I just went out and I found my crossbow bolt and it was covered in blood, sticking in the ground. Not a lot of blood. And I followed that blood trail, all out into the cornfield. And there was some blood, but not a lot of blood. And then I followed it all the way up to where she walked into the swamp again. And I see on the tall grass there's, blood high up on the tall grass. And I started to step into the tall grass, and then I heard something rustle about 20 yards in, and I stopped, and then I heard, and it was kind of like a moan, and I thought, that deer is 15, 20 yards away from me. And that's not normal. Normally, a deer, when it knows you're there, it'll take off running. This deer did not take off running. So my thought was, okay, the deer is down. I must have only hit one lung. And so I just need to back out and let it die. Which I did. I went home, for about an hour and a half. And then I went back right to that spot. I walked in, about 15, 20 yards maybe into the swamp. And there was my deer, a nice big old doe. I'll put a picture on the website on this posting, so it should be right below the podcast. In case you want to see a dead deer, you're probably not excited, but hey, I am excited. My first deer of the year, and this was my last night that I could hunt before going on vacation. My wife, God bless her, planned our family vacation right smack dab in the middle of bow season. I still love her, but I gotta tell you, she shouldn't be testing my love like that, because that's like beyond the pale, right? How do you go on vacation during hunting season, a family vacation? But hey, I love my family, love my wife, my kids, so I do what I got to do. We're going all the way to the Pacific Ocean. We're driving west, and we're not stopping till we get to Newport, Oregon. I tell you, the big challenge for me is I have to go unarmed, without my gun, for 2 weeks. I'll be out there. We have a short stopover in Kansas on the way down to visit her grandma and aunts and uncles and stuff, and then we'll drive on out. But we're driving through the night for like 2 nights to get out there, and then we'll be out there, with relatives and stuff like that, doing whatever they do on the West Coast, and then head back home. I told Sarah, I said, now listen, I'll do this, but we have to be back before the rut starts. And finally, she agreed to that. And so, I have to be back on the 22nd for a class anyways in Fenville. So I'll be back in time for the rut. And that's when I'll get a buck to match this doe. So anyways, ding dong, Bambi's dead. Isn't that great? Now, Bambi's mom anyways. So I'm feeling pretty good. You know what? And this is I think it's like 11:15 at night, and I normally don't drink Frappuccino this late at night, but I feel like I have to celebrate, so here it goes. Oh, yeah. That was worth it. That was really worth it. That'll keep me up half the night, and I'm happy. I have to get up early, like 5:30, to teach a class tomorrow. But, I'm okay with that. I can run on adrenaline. If I'm happy, I can go on adrenaline for days. So I'm on fumes, but I'm happy. I tell you, I got the best brother in the world. Because I go out, I shoot this deer tonight, and then tomorrow I've got, class all day, and then as soon as I get done with class, we're leaving for Oregon. So I go ahead and shoot a deer, and then I'm thinking, what am I going to do with this deer? I don't have time to skin it and quarter it out and debone the meat and grind the burger, and I don't have time to do any of that stuff. So I called up my brother and I said, John, I've got a huge favor. And if any of you know my brother, he's got this sense of humor. He says, well, all right, which kidney do you want? I said, no, it's not that bad. He said, you don't want my kidney or my liver. That's a whole separate story. I said, it's nothing that big. I shot this deer, and can you cut it up for me? Because I'm just not going to be here. And God bless his heart. He said, yeah, sure, bring it over here. So I took it over to my brother John, and he's going to cut that deer up for me while I'm on vacation. So, God bless John Coryell, the brother of all brothers. Oh, and I thank you, and I do hereby dedicate episode 47 of the Home Defense Show to my little brother, John Coryell. All right, folks. Boy, you know what? We are almost out of time. We don't have time for news, but you know what? I'll give you the news. All right, we've got famines, we've got pandemic, we've got pestilence, we've got volcanoes all over the place. We got earthquakes like crazy. We've got North Korea, getting ready to shoot nukes at us. We've got active shooters in Las Vegas, all over the country. Got evil people trying to kill us. So it's pretty much just a normal week. Hey, it's just an average day in the news. We've got the dark horse of the apocalypse, riding into America. So get used to that. I think it's going to be with us for a while. But hey, that's the news today. What do we have on the show? Hey, we've got a special treat for you. We have Craig Gray, who is the highest ranking Krav Maga instructor outside of Israel. That's like outside of Israel on the whole stinking planet, right? So he's going to be talking to us in segments 2 and 3 all about Krav Maga, what's the history of it, how it works, how you get into it. Everything Krav Maga is going to be talked about by Craig Gray. Awesome guy. I got to know him through the course of the interview. You're going to love that a whole lot. In fact, I think I'm going to be taking Krav Maga here in a couple of months. Might be my winter project. But anyways, that's what we got going for you today. And then, of course, in segment 4, we'll have the wrap-up where I tell you what I really think about Krav Maga. Okay, folks, I'm happy. I have satisfied my bloodlust for a couple of more weeks. So we got a 2-minute break. Go ahead and listen to our sponsors. And while we are away, go ahead and do a search in Wikipedia on Krav Maga and find out what the flying lip lock I'm talking about. All right, folks, this is Skip Coryell on Home Defense Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
My name is Skip Coryell. Welcome to the Home Defense Show with my dad, Skip Coryell. Don't go nowhere. We'll be right back.
This is Skip Coryell from the Home Defense Show, and I want you to have the very best handgun that money can buy. And that's why we recommend you visit Larry Jackson at Elite Firearms and Training. As a concealed carry instructor, I see people every week out on the range with guns they can't shoot properly because they didn't know what to buy. That will never happen at Elite Firearms and Training. Larry Jackson will personally fit you with your very own personal defense pistol. So call Larry Jackson today at 616-299-8715 or visit elitefirearms.us.
This is Colonel Danny Gillum. I host Frontlines of Freedom, a weekly syndicated military talk radio show. One of my co-hosts is Skip Coryell, the host of this show. We cover things that impact military and veteran communities, and we do it from the veteran's perspective. The show is broadcast across the nation and is also available as a podcast on our website, frontlinesoffreedom.com. Please join Skip and me weekly on Frontlines of Freedom.
Okay, folks, welcome back to the Home Defense Show. This is your host, Skip Coryell. This segment, we have an expert in Krav Maga. His name is Craig Gray. Craig, welcome to the Home Defense Show.
How you doing, Skip?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. This is a good morning. The sun is shining. It's going to be like summer in the end of September. So, hey, my chickens are laying good eggs today. So this is all my listeners will know what that means. But this is a very good day for all things Skip Coryell. Craig, Krav Maga. You know, I don't know a whole lot about it other than what I've read. But first, before we get too far into this, can you give my listeners kind of like an overview of who is Craig Gray?
That is a great question out there. So I started martial arts when I was a kid. My father was a Marine. He served over in Okinawa and the Philippines. And when he came stateside and had me and my brother, he started us off in martial arts very, very early, way before it was a kind of popular for kids to be training in martial arts. So I started in the basement, and it kind of stuck with me. And as I continued into adulthood in that, I started in a regular school, traditional martial arts school, and then did the tournament thing. I fought in the ring. I did everything from, kind of the fancier stuff to the very practical stuff. One of the many jobs is I did some process serving and, working for an organization doing evictions and surveillances for, private investigators and this type of thing. And I started getting into security services, executive protection and bodyguard work in that. Just kind of fell into it. I met some Marines out when I was doing the VIP executive protection training, and they had just gotten out of the military, and their last duty that they served was with the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, and they trained in this system called Krav Maga, which I had already had numerous black belts in different traditional martial arts at that point in time, so I was really familiar with kind of the, how to punch, how to kick, and how to do a lot of physical things, and they showed me and introduced me to this system that is really more of a tactical system, more so than a martial art. It really took to me because it was very applicable for what I was doing at the time, and also at that point in time, this is probably, just to kind of put a time frame in it, you're looking at mid-90s. At that point in time, there was a huge transition in there between, post-Rodney King through kind of this change in law enforcement to a softer, gentler kind of approach to a certain degree. And during that time, they were still hiring guys like me. Krav Maga, which means contact combat in Hebrew. So basically like hand-to-hand combatives. We would consider that in our military's branches. But they called it contact combat. And it was a very simplistic way of taking care of street-type applications in a very no-nonsense type of a manner. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was great. It was very easily learned and easily applied. So when I started picking it up, it was easier to teach myself, and it was also easier to teach the officers in that I worked with how to defend themselves, not just defend themselves, but quite frankly, how to protect other people more effectively as well. Because, maybe they didn't want to spend 20 years in martial arts or 10 years in martial arts to get proficient enough to actually utilize some of the techniques that are, covered in a traditional system. Krav, I like to say, is kind of learn today, use tonight. Hopefully not, but where a lot of martial arts, it's you plant a seed, and then that seed kind of grows over a period of time, kind of bringing out that art aspect. So to make a long story somewhat short, I really took to the Krav. I still do some of the traditional martial arts even today, but I really have been focusing on the Krav Maga for many years now. I trained in Israel a number of times. I taught in Israel a number of times. Matter of fact, headed back there again, coming up in November to do some training and teaching in Israel, and it's a very interesting approach that is, I think, more accessible for people, especially in today's day and age, who are very busy. You know, everybody's doing a gazillion things, and they don't have time to necessarily spend 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years learning a martial art to finally be able to maybe protect themselves, where Krav is, I wouldn't say it's an instant approach. However, it's a much shorter approach to gaining those skills of being able to protect yourself and other people.
Well, and Craig, some of us don't have 30 years. I mean, I just, well, I just turned 60 just last week, and it's like 30 years. Wow, 60 plus 30 is 90. I'm not going to be doing a whole lot of flying backflips and, roundhouse kicks when I'm 90, I don't think. But you know what? I still want to be able to protect myself. I mean, I'd love to live till 90, but if someone mugs me and I can't protect myself, then, hey, that probably ain't going to happen. So, you know,
that may not be an option, right?
Well, yeah. Tell what is the history of Krav Maga? How did it come to be?
Well, Krav Maga started, and there's a number of different history lines that we could take. One of the gentlemen who is really credited as being the creator of Krav Maga, his name is Imi Lichtenfeld. And Imi was born in Hungary, and he was obviously Jewish, right? And during the 20s and 30s and then early 40s, anti-Semitism really grew in Europe, as we know, and just preceding World War II. And he started in his neighborhoods noticing that Jewish people were getting beat up, right? Kind of the rioting started and this type of thing. A lot of, if you were of Jewish heritage, your businesses were often broken into. You and your family were sometimes, if they were seen out in public when these mobs were doing their demonstrations, would be dragged out and beaten, sometimes even killed. And Imi and his father was a police officer, and previous to being a police officer, his father was an acrobat, and he's kind of like a circus performer, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Also a martial artist, mainly boxing and wrestling at that point in time. And his father owned a gym called Hercules, and he and his father started teaching kind of the general public how to protect themselves. Imi was like I said, he boxed and he wrestled, and he was a champion. He was a champion, but he soon realized when he was teaching people how to defend themselves was a couple things. Number one, people didn't have a lot of time to train, just like today. Number two, they were not combatants, so to speak. They were just everyday people that wanted to learn how to protect themselves and their families. And the third thing what Imi noticed was the sport techniques didn't work very well out in the street. Some of them did, but they needed to be adapted. So he started to do that. The heat got kind of turned up in Europe, as we know, and he ended up leaving what is now the Czechoslovakia, and he ended up leaving that area to get out of the kind of oppression of the anti-Semitism. And he ended up, eventually, like 3 years later, he ended up in Palestine, which is now Israel. And during that time, he spent a little bit of time in the, I think the Czechoslovakian, the British kind of held that territory for a while, and I believe he served in the army with the British Army. as a reserve for a little while. He learned some hand-to-hand combatives there as well. But when he ended up in Palestine, there was a organization then, because the Jewish people have Israel as a state yet, but they did have a strong voice and also a militia. The militia was called the Haganah, and there was a special unit of the Haganah, which is called the Palmach. And the Palmach were kind of like their special unit guys, and he ended up joining the militia, and he had a good history and background of teaching hand-to-hand combatives, and obviously he was a champion himself and very passionate about obviously his Jewish heritage and that. They kind of volunteered him, or he volunteered for teaching the people how to defend themselves. And then later in 1948, when Drew became a state, the Haganah and Palmach turned to IDF, the Israeli army. And the name for the hand-to-hand combatives, which used to be Kapap, K-A-P-A-P, which means like empty hand. I don't speak Hebrew, so my translations probably aren't exact. That's basically what it means, empty hand fighting. Or fighting without a gun, because they often used sticks, because they weren't allowed to have firearms. And anyways, Kapap turned into Krav Maga, and Imi became the first Krav Maga official instructor. That's kind of like what it is in a nutshell.
All right. Well, hey, that's the important thing to me is that I don't have to actually learn to speak Hebrew in order to study Krav Maga. So that's encouraging for me.
You and I both, right?
All right. Well, Craig, we're out of time for this segment, but we're going to take a 2-minute break. Then we're going to come right back. Folks, listen to the sponsors. During the break, go ahead and just go on the internet and just do a search on Krav Maga. See what you can find out there. All right, folks, we're going to be back in 2 minutes. This is Skip Coryell on Home Defense Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
This is Felix Coryell on the Home Defense Show. Always use guns safely and wisely. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This is Skip Coryell from the Home Defense Show, and I want to talk to you about keeping your kids safe around guns. I've never been a big fan of trigger locks, but I have to tell you, I have found a product called Child Safe 1. It's a trigger blocker, not a trigger lock, and it works fantastic. I tried it out on my kids, and they could not get the Child Safe 1 off the training gun. I gave them 5 minutes. I sat there and I watched them, and they couldn't do it. Folks, I am satisfied, more than satisfied, that my kids are safe around Child Safe 1. Here's the good thing about it. I can get that lock off the gun in under 2 seconds, but my kids can't even figure out how it works. Child Safe 1 is a win-win for everyone in the family. My wife's happy because she knows the guns are secure. My kids are happy because they're safe. And I'm happy because when the wolf comes a-knocking, I've got that gun cocked, locked, and ready to rock in less than 2 seconds. So go to globalgunsafety.com and get Child Safe 1 today. That's globalgunsafety.com. Check it out now and tell them the Home Defense Show sent you.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if life was like the movies and the good guys always won? In today's world, if you're forced to use your firearm to protect yourself, you will need protection. Firearms Legal Protection is here for you. FLP provides you with seasoned, experienced attorneys that handle your criminal and civil matters as a result of you protecting yourself. FirearmsLegal.com provides its members with uncapped attorney's fees, bail bond protection, and coverage in all 50 states. We are not a reimbursement plan. You can access uncapped attorney's fees for as low as $10 a month. Firearms Legal members are provided with educational services, training videos, and access to our vast national attorney network. While you're protecting yourself, let Firearms Legal protect you.
Listen up, folks. This is important. There are plenty of legal protection services out there, but none will protect you as well as Firearms Legal Protection. This is the one I use and the only one I recommend. Visit firearmslegal.com/Midwest Tactical and protect your family now. Okay, folks, welcome back to the Home Defense Show. This is your host, Skip Coryell. We are speaking with Craig Gray all about Krav Maga and how we can incorporate that into our home and personal defense system. Now, Craig, where do you teach out of? You're somewhere in Grand Rapids, correct?
That is correct. I kind of two things. Most of my work actually is done on site at the different locations that I'm hired to come in and teach at. But we have ongoing weekly classes that run at Westside Fitness Center, which is right in Grand Rapids, 1618 Leonard Street Northwest, right down in kind of the heart of the West Side Grand Rapids there.
And what's your website, just so people can look it up while they're listening to the show here?
Ronin, that's R-O-N-I-N, Krav Maga, A-R-A-V as in Victor, M-A-G-A.org.
RoninKravMaga.org. Where did the Ronin come in?
The Ronin is reflective of two things. One's kind of making fun of myself to a certain degree. Another is kind of a reflection of my traditional martial arts background. Ronin is a masterless samurai. Back in the feudal Japan era, samurai warriors kind of had this code of ethics, and they were supposed to commit suicide if they did not have a master or a lord reigning over them, or if they lost a battle or disobeyed their overlord. And the Ronin were the ones that said, no, I think I'm good. I'm going to go off my own thing. And some of them were good. The Magnificent Seven, that Western, is based on the Seven Samurai, a Ronin tale of these seven Ronin that protected a village from an evil kind of overlord. So some of the Ronin were good guys that would be out there protecting the innocent, and then there were some that weren't so good too. There were some that were mercenaries. I like to think I'm more the good guy, but it's about being the master of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds good. I don't think I really want to serve a king. I don't really, the only master I have is celestial, so we'll just leave it at that.
There we go.
Craig, let's say Johnny Cupcake, he walks in off the street and he walks up to you and say, Craig, I want to master Krav Maga. What is the path that you're going to take this guy on?
Well, if they're coming to my martial arts studio, you first come in, you watch a class, we chat a little bit, get to know one another, and then if they like what they see, they'll start an intro session, which is about a month long, a couple days a week. And then most people after that intro session are ready to transition into the standard classes. And the mastery part really is, it's an infinite journey, so we're all in the same place, as a good friend and mentor of mine said one time. So keep going, right? This idea of being a protector needs to be clarified. So I hope people to clarify what this protector ethic is. I like to call it a peace walker. Whether you're carrying a firearm, or you are a professional protector, or you are a mother, or you are basically a human being, we are all protectors. We just have to make sure that we are protecting the right things. So I hope people to clarify what that is. Train as much or as little as you want to get good at the physical capacity of this approach. But really, it's about a lifestyle of how are you, A, clarifying what you're protecting in the thickest things, and B, are you doing what you can to either avoid problems or to be part of the solution, so to speak? How are you talking to be able to de-escalate and to persuade? How are you clarifying your boundaries? And, well, what happens if it all goes to hell in a handbasket? What is your plan B? And I like to think of Krav Maga as your plan B, right? Just like any type of physical boundary, it should be a last resort, any type of physical violence, whether it's hand-to-hand or obviously, and more importantly, if it's your firearm, that it's a lethal threat and you're making the right decisions in the thick of things.
Craig, I noticed last week when I went to one of your classes and I observed for about an hour and a half, first thing I observed was, you know what, wow, I'm 60 years old. These guys are really burning a lot of calories here. I wasn't, your warm-up, lasted 10 minutes. I thought, okay, I'm getting tired just watching this thing. But those are people who have been beyond the 30 days, and they've been practicing for probably several years. What type of physical requirements are there for people? Because someone like me, it's like I'm 60 years old. I'm a shadow of my former self when it comes to my physical prowess. Are we going to be able to handle the physical rigors of training like this?
Well, it's funny you should ask that, because there are some concerns with folks, and we have a lot of different training opportunities for individuals wherever they're at. Everything from, I've got about 200 free videos that are posted on YouTube, and you can get them through my website. So if you want to just look at the techniques of, well, here's a situation, if this happens to you, here's what you might do, and you can practice it right in the comfort of your own home without any real, other than having to have some general mobility. You don't really need any cardio or strength conditioning to do that. We also have courses and seminars that we do on a monthly basis that you can come in that are not nearly as physical as our classes are. You will be given usually scenario training. It's done in a very low impact way, in a very supportive way, not a competitive type of a situation by any stretch of the imagination. We also have courses, like we've got one coming up for active shooting events. That particular one is it's a 2.25 day. It's 2 hours on Friday, all day on Saturday, all day on Sunday, coming up in October. So there's a whole kind of course that you can take, or we have some of the workshops we do are just a few hours long. And then you also have, obviously, the ongoing classes, like what you had seen. And believe it or not, we have, our average student is probably in their 40s. We have a lot of people who are 50 and above. And in fact, the last test that we had, over 2/3 of our students that were testing were over 50 years old. I've been teaching martial arts for a long, long time, and I've seen the general age that are being students in at least this type of a circumstance as far as crowd. And I've got some students that are in their 60s, and every once in a while I get somebody who's even a little bit older than that. But regular classes, you do have to be at least a median line physical shape. We don't try to kill you by any means, but you will be moving.
Okay, let me tell you, my intention is that I do want to learn this system, simply because I need a system. I've researched, a lot of the other martial arts, and a lot of them, they operate based on fine motor skills, and it's very fluid. There's a lot of katas and things like that, and it takes decades to master, and I don't have decades. So I'm going to be doing this, and I'll probably have about a month and a half, maybe 2 months, before I can start this, because of my own personal schedule. I'm very, very busy. Sure. What should I be doing in the next 1 to 2 months to try and get myself in shape? Because I don't want to start out and then get hurt. Because when you're 60 years old and you get hurt, the recovery time is probably 3 or 4 times longer. You don't just bounce back. So what should I be doing to get in shape in preparation for learning Krav Maga?
That is another great question, Skip. You are like the king of great questions. So here are some things that you can do. Number one is go on the website, the RoningKravMaga.org website, look at those videos and start practicing. Start practicing what are on those videos. The next thing to do for your conditioning is very simply, I learned this from one of my colleagues and mentors and friends of mine. His name is, they call him Joe Marine. It's Joe Shushko, and he's a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps. He runs the MACE, the Marine Corps Martial Arts Center of Excellence, and I do a lot of work with him with this organization that I'm part of called Resolution Group International. He is responsible for all the combat conditioning for the entire Marine Corps. Here's what he taught me. It's called 5, 10, 15, 20. So what you do for 10 minutes is you're going to pick 5 exercises. Let's say you're going to do 5 push-ups, you're going to do 10 squats, you're going to do 15 crunches, and you'll do 20 jumping jacks. Do that as fast as you can without hurting yourself, without stopping, for a duration of maybe start with 5 minutes. And then once you can do that, ramp it up to 10 minutes. And you'd be amazed that if you're doing this at least 3 days a week, and if you're doing this for 10 minutes, you can be done with your workout in, I would say, 15 to 20 your workout itself would be 10 minutes. You have a little bit of a warm-up, a little bit of cool down, and you're good to go. So you could easily do it on a lunch hour or lunch half an hour even, and do that about 3 or 4 times a week. That, in addition to watching those videos and kind of mimicking some of the movements on there, would be a good start to getting ready.
I can do that. Right now I'm working out, a short workout because I'm just so stinking busy. I'll work out for like maybe 15 minutes at night with a weight machine. I'll work out my legs and arms and, upper body, try and get that ready. But I've noticed that at 60 years old, I'm not as flexible as I used to be. I mean, it used to be, you remember, I don't know how old you are, but when I was 20, I was playing soccer, I was still in the Marine Corps, doing all this heavy stuff, and I'd wake up in the morning and I'd go, oh, wow, man, my legs are sore. And I'd go, oh, yeah, that's right, I ran 12 miles yesterday. Now I wake up in the morning and I go, oh, wow, I'm kind of sore. And I go, oh, yeah, that's right, I'm alive. I hurt, therefore I am, kind of a deal. But, I noticed when, you guys were doing mat work, you were down on the ground, close quarters combat, on top of each other. There's some flexibility that comes in there as well. So I'm thinking I should probably do some stretching and just try and get some flexibility back in my old bones and my old joints.
As I said, with the 5, 10, 15, 20, you're going to want to do probably about a 5-minute warm-up previous, probably about another 3 to 5 minute cool down. And that can be inclusive of some stretching.
Well, we're all so busy now, and we spend too much time on electronic devices, too much time in front of the television. America in general, we're just obese and out of shape. So anything that you do is better than nothing. And so I'm glad to hear that I could probably spend a half-hour a day over the next 2 months, and I could walk into your class and not walk out an hour and a half later as a permanent invalid, because I've just crippled myself. So that's good. Craig, I'm glad we had this time together, and I appreciate everything that you've shared with our listeners, but we're out of time now. Once more, go over the contact info. How can people get a hold of you and take advantage of your experience?
RonanKravMaga.org. That is the easiest way to kind of get linked in with me at this point. And keep your eyes out for we're doing an online membership site coming up here that will have a module for concealed carry individuals that will have specific exercise tools and skills for the person who took it upon themselves to get that license to carry a concealed weapon.
Definitely interests me, because everyone who carries concealed, if you're smart, you realize that you can't always get to the gun, or you're not always legally justified in using the gun. And sometimes you have to fight to get to the gun. So now that definitely interests me. So I will keep that in mind as well, Craig. All right, Craig, thank you very much for being on the Home Defense Show. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Skip. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, all right, folks. We got 2 more minutes until we get to segment 4 and the wrap-up, and then we'll talk behind Craig's back where he can't hear us. And I'll tell you what I really think about all this Krav Maga stuff. All right, folks, this is Skip Coryell on Home Defense Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Welcome to my dad's Home Defense Radio show. You're gonna love it.
Hey, folks. This is Skip Coryell, host of the Home Defense Show. I want to tell you about my book, Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book. More and more people across the country are seeing the dangers in society and deciding to carry concealed to protect themselves and their families. My new book lays it out step by step. It'll teach you how to protect and defend the ones you love. Get the benefit of 17 years of teaching experience and a lifetime of training for this important role in society and in your family. You can get Civilian Combat real easy. Just go to Amazon.com, search on Skip Coryell Civilian Combat. It'll pop right up there. Don't put it off any longer. Get Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book, by yours truly, Skip Coryell. This is Skip Coryell from the Home Defense Show, and I want you to have the very best handgun that money can buy. And that's why we recommend you visit Larry Jackson at Elite Firearms and Training. As a concealed carry instructor, I see people every week out on the range with guns they can't shoot properly because they didn't know what to buy. That will never happen at Elite Firearms and Training. Larry Jackson will personally fit you with your very own personal defense pistol. So call Larry Jackson today at 616-299-8715 or visit elitefirearms.us.
This is Colonel Denny Gillum. I host Frontlines of Freedom, a weekly syndicated 2-hour military talk radio show. Indeed, the largest military talk radio show in the nation. You can hear us on weekends on broadcast radio or catch our show on the podcast that's available on our website, frontlines-of-freedom.com. Hear military and veteran news that you won't hear anywhere else, and hear it on Frontlines of Freedom.
Okay, folks, welcome back to the Home Defense Show. This is your host, Skip Coryell. How about that Craig Gray fella? My gosh, I want to keep him on my good side. I don't want him, shoving his hand down my throat and ripping my heart out. I've been thinking a lot lately about open-handed defense. I mean, we had John Correa from Active Self-Protection on last week, and he talked about the importance of it, gave us some details. And I've been thinking about it for a long time. And then with Craig Gray, he gave us a lot of specifics, gave us some history and a lot of specific things about Krav Maga. I like Krav Maga. I like the fact that it's just so brutal. I was very impressed when I went to his class and I'm watching them go through all of their techniques, and they're very simple techniques. Simple compared to, some of the other martial arts that you see. Those are more art and less martial, I think. But Krav Maga is just very basic, very simple. A lot of improvisation going on with that. You don't have everything mapped out. Okay, I'm going to do it this way, I'm going to follow up with this. You just kind of go with the flow and respond to whatever the bad guy is doing to you. But it's very primeval. When they attack, boy, like 110%. And I think that's what impresses me, because when you get into that life or death altercation, there is no room for holding back. You have to be deliberate. You have to want to hurt this bad guy more than he wants to hurt you. And that means taking away something that he needs to continue pressing the fight against you. Whether it's his airway, whether it's his circulation, or, whatever, his brainwaves, you do what you got to do. So I'm real impressed with that, and I'm definitely going to be checking that out. I know, and probably most of you do instinctively as well, that you can't always be armed. You can't always get to your firearm in time. Sometimes you're ambushed from behind and you never get to it. People with guns have been killed by unarmed people before. That's the way that it happens. And like John Correa said last week, he said 80 to 90% of all altercations never rise to the level of deadly force. It's a bumping match or shouting match, or someone is just punching you or something like that. And so you need some type of open-handed self-defense skills. So I'm definitely going to do that. I'm on the road right now. The nice thing about this recorded show is I can do it anywhere. I'm in my motel room. I'm on the outskirts of Denver, getting ready to drive through the mountains, and we just had a snowstorm last night. There's about an inch of snow on the ground outside and like 3 to 8 inches through the mountains. I don't like driving through the mountains. I don't like driving through the mountains at night, and I especially don't like driving through the mountains at night in the snow. So we stayed at a motel last night, and I'm just knocking out this 4th segment. I had an interesting thing happen to me last night. Walked into the motel to register, and there was a woman behind the counter, a man standing right next to me, and he was talking with her. And I'm trying to check in, and I noticed that he is flirting with the clerk. And he's got like two 20-ounce cans of beer there next to him, and he was covered in tattoos. And I don't know what an MS-13 tattoo looks like. I could probably look it up online, but my spider sense was going crazy because he was standing, 3 feet away from me, in front of the counter with me, and he was way too interested in me. He stopped flirting with the lady, and he tried to strike up a conversation with me. And I had my gun in a fanny pack. Sometimes I'll do that when I'm traveling, getting in and out of the van a lot, sleeping in the van. It's just more comfortable. And the guy looked down at my fanny pack, and that's not normal. And I'm always looking for any type of anomaly when I'm with other people. He looked down at the fanny pack, and he held his gaze, and he said, "That's a really nice fanny pack." And I said, "Oh, thank you." And I didn't say anything else. And then he said, "A guy needs one of those every place he goes these days." I said, "Oh, yeah, okay." And I did not want to continue the conversation with the guy. That's never happened before. Most people don't even notice things attached to people's waist. So I walked away thinking, this guy knows that there's a gun in my fanny pack. And he wanted me to know that he knew that I had a gun in my fanny pack. And I thought, why is that? This guy was way too interested in me. And then after that, I get all checked in, and he said, "I'd be happy to help you carry your luggage up to your room." And I said, "Oh, well, thank you very much. I'll let you know." And he says, I'm really serious about it. I'd be happy to, carry the luggage up to your room." And I'm thinking, okay, either this guy's gay and he's hitting on me, or he wants my gun. So I was very polite, but I made eye contact and politely declined. And that's the last time I ever saw the guy. I got Sarah and the kids. We didn't go in the main entrance there. We drove around to the side entrance. It was after dark. I did not want him to follow me up there to our room. Didn't want him to know where I was. Certainly didn't want him to befriend my children or my wife. I just had this gut feeling about the guy. He did nothing illegal or wrong or anything like that. It's just that he set off all my warning indicators. There were buzzers going on inside my head all over the place. My heart of hearts, I know this guy was up to no good. Can't prove that, but I took extra precautions last night. We loaded from the side. Sarah watched my back while I unloaded everything. We kept the kids close. We got everybody inside. At night, normally I'll go down to the lobby. I'll check things out, maybe walk around a little bit, maybe get a Mountain Dew or something like that. Last night I did none of that. I said, "Sarah, no one leaves the room. We're just going to stay here. We're going to get in bed, get a good night's sleep." I hardly slept at all last night. I was just on high alert all night long. I took 2 suitcases and I put them up against the door, just as a little added precaution. The hotel clerk, I don't trust all hotel clerks either. He's hitting on this girl, and I just didn't know the situation. So I took extra precautions. And this is one of the few times where I've ever worn my firearm to bed with me. It's very uncomfortable, so I don't usually do that. But I did it last night. And then this morning, I woke up like 2 hours early and checked outside, checked downstairs, didn't see the guy again. So I'm thinking he's probably a local guy who came in and was just looking for an easy mark, looking for an opportunity, and I did not give him that opportunity. Don't be afraid to be standoffish with people that you don't know and with people that you don't trust. When you're profiling people, and you should definitely profile people, don't profile based on race, because that's racist. You profile people based on what are they doing. Profile based on actions. Are they looking at you too much? Are they too interested? Are they nervous? This guy was just way too interested in me, and that made me nervous, and I didn't want him around. So my way of dealing with that potential threat was just, while we are in our motel room, we've got 3 locks on the doors right there. I got suitcases piled up. If I need to get out, I can. I got the peephole. And I told Sarah, I said, if someone knocks on the door, do not open the door. Look out the peephole, even if it's the clerk, the motel clerk. Don't open the door. Just talk through the door. What do you need? Of course, she thought that was overkill, and maybe it was. The guy could be totally innocent. But my gut feeling tells me he was nefarious, and I have learned to always trust my gut. Always trust your gut, folks. So what's the worst that could happen if you trust your gut? Like I did last night. The worst that could happen is I took some unnecessary precautions. So what? No one got hurt. You know, the potential bad guy, he didn't get hurt. I didn't get hurt. Sarah, the kids, nobody got hurt. Everybody else got a good night's sleep. So, hey, no harm, no foul. But I did what I had to do, and I feel okay about it. Now, all we got to do is load up the van, and I'll be on high alert again. And then we got to drive through the mountains, the Continental Divide, in the snow, which I do not relish at all. But hey, it is what it is. Next week, I'll tell you all about my trip. I will be recording from the road. We will be the coast of Oregon, in my wife's hometown, visiting relatives. So we'll give you everything that you need from there. Well, I am in a hurry to get on the road and get through these mountains to my destination. So I guess that about wraps it up for this week's episode of the Home Defense Show. Next week, we'll be back with more exciting stuff in home, personal, family defense. Until then, remember your purpose in life is to find something greater than yourself and serve it. Always remember God, family, country in that order. It's important how you live, but it's equally important how you die. Your family and the ones you love need your protection, so train, always train, stay alert, stay alive. Until next week on the Home Defense Show, this is your host, Skip Coryell. God bless you, God bless your family, God bless America.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Home Defense Show. Now, get out there and protect the ones you love. We'll see you next week with more of the best in home defense.
Bye-bye, boys! Have fun storming the castle!